It is a 2007 Ford Crown Victoria P71 designation, which means it is a former cop car.
So the first and most obvious thing is your choice of livery. So what's the story behind that?
So as I was talking about, I autocross quite a bit, and it came to me a couple of years ago that I was not really having fun trying to be competitive in autocross. I have been autocrossing for 20 years, and I am good, but I'm like 90th percentile, and I'm convinced that that last 10 percentile is kind of like who you are, not something you can learn. It's more a natural ability than a skill. I was never at the real pointy end, and I got very upset with myself for not being at the pointy end, and I was like, I'm not having fun anymore, so you know what, screw this. And I took my wife's 96 Miata, and I put the cheapest, crappiest tires I could have on it, and I just went and, you know, basically drifted courses and just had a lot of fun hooning through the courses, and I was just having a ball, and everyone else is watching me like, hey, he's having more fun than we are. And part of that basically inspired my friend to come up with this idea of a class for autocross. It's a local provisional class called Meme Street. So normally the street classes, which are like lowly modified cars, it's A Street, B Street, C Street, D Street. So it all depends on like what level of car. Like a Corvette would be A Street, like a Civic Type R would be D Street. There's only one rule, it just has to do with the tires. They have to be a tread wear of 420 or higher, of course, or they have to be at least 2 presidential administrations old. Or they have to be some kind of meme tire like Cosmo Mucho Machos or Linglongs or Dorals or some kind of terrible crappy tire that isn't going to give you any competitive advantage. The point is just to have fun. The point is not to compete.
So the livery fits in with the Meme Street.
Well, we're getting there.
Okay.
He keeps going. So, you know, eventually I decided I wanted a winter beater because I have, you know, a couple of very nice cars, none of which I really wanted to drive in the winter. And I've heard a lot of good things about how well these cars handle. And I'm like, well, I could get one of these as a winter beater because I don't care about it. And I bought this for $2,300. And that was at the height of used car prices. Like,
oh, wow.
That was when, you know, anything was going, the Ram was $10,000. These cars actually have a short long arm front suspension, unequal length control arm, so they have good camber curve in the front, and they are a solid axle rear, but they have a Watts link in the rear, which is actually better than the contemporary Mustang. They just had a panhard rod, so it's about as well controlled of a live axle as you can possibly get. And for their size, they have a pretty short wheelbase, so they actually handle really well. So I started autocrossing this almost exclusively in Meme Street, and last year we decided that we were going to take this car to the National Championship of Autocross in Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska, the people who go there are just serious business all the time, super serious. Like they are there to win. Then they get drunk every night to just blow off steam because there's, you know, like the people who like won't even talk to anyone because they're so focused on competition. I'm like, let's just go. And you know, some people will really enjoy it and some people will really not enjoy it, but we should go and we should take this car and we should just screw around in the closest analog of a national class, because Meme Street's not a nationals,
right.
But we should go in a livery that makes it fun. We were looking for ideas, and you know, we talked about the Golf livery, you know, the orange and blue, you know, different stuff to have fun. My buddy who actually came up with all the rules for Meme Street, he's very involved in the 24 Hours of Lemons, which I know you've interviewed some of those people, and they do themes for their different teams. And I'm like, you know, what would be a good one that's copied? Because there's not a whole lot of crossover from 24 Hours of Lemons guys in autocross. And about 10 years ago, there was a team that fielded like a BMW E30 like 318i. It was when Nyan Cat was a popular meme, and they painted it up, just is very similar to this, different hood, and they put a speaker system along the roof so that they played that Nyan Cat song straight for that, you know, 12 hours of racing or whatever it was. And I'm like, perfect, we're doing that. So a friend of that person, who happens to be his roommate, he is actually a furry artist, let's say. He is very skilled. I told him nothing obscene on the car because I do drive this to work in the winter. But he did this with masking tape and graffiti paint over 2 days. He did the entire car freehand. And
that's awesome.
Just like from
awesome.
A picture of Nyan Cat. It takes a lot of explaining, and I find that people's reaction is related to their age and to their familiarity with the meme. You know, any millennial that's familiar with Nyan Cat absolutely loses it. Others were upset that I was competing in this car and, you know, diluting the purity of competition or whatever. There were complaints online when the photos were showing up because I was doing just ripping a big old burnout at the start of every run because I don't care. And they're like, oh, you're leaving all that rubber on the line, you're ruining the runs for the people behind you. And then someone commented back like, I was behind him and I was enjoying the hell out of those burnouts, so you can be quiet. Like, No one cares what your opinion is.
The spirit of autocross.
Yeah, the spirit of autocross.
The spirit of
oh
autocross.
no. And then the hood, we got the dark side of the Nyan.
I didn't see that before. It's fantastic.
And people still think I'm a cop.
Unit.
Yeah, the Nyan unit, that's its official name.
What kind of cop?
I don't know. They haven't made these things in like almost 14 years now. I think 2011 was the last production year. So like they've been retired from most police forces for years and years and years. And yet, on the highway, on one lane road, everyone just thinks I'm a cop. They jam on their brakes. It's like there is a huge painted cartoon cat on the hood. I'm not a cop. Get out of the way.
Candy cop.
Speaking of candy, so like an ice cream truck, we have a speaker system mounted in the grill here and another set of speakers underneath the bumper, so we can play the Nyan Cat song or any other song that we want. You know,
But why would you?
Yeah, why would you?
Why would you?
Well, we were doing all kinds of different stuff during autocross runs because that Nyan Cat song gets tiring after, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of it. So yeah, I played like One Winged Angel from Final Fantasy VII. I was playing various different epic songs or, you know, jokey songs, you know, whatever you can think of.
What kind of state was it in when you got it?
So it had a lot of the cop equipment still attached to it. It had a cop center console. It had the full cage and divider in between the front and rear seats. It had cop seats in the front. I've since replaced the driver's seat because those cop seats suck. Anything that said police on it had been like whizzed off with like a wire wheel. Like they use so little care in just removing anything that identified it as a police vehicle. When I took the seats out and did different stuff to it, I did find like 4 rounds of 9mm, very corroded because this was in Surf City, North Carolina, which is like a little isthmus. And it's just up and down the beach. That's all they ever did.
Oh, wow.
And so there's lots of sand in the carpet.
But it's neat you knew where it came from. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, they still had stickers that said Surf City, North Carolina. It just said blank department,
Yeah.
which one can presume.
Candy Police Department.
Yeah, Candy Police Department, yes.
Was this something specifically that you were looking for then?
So yeah, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of options when it comes to these cop cars, but I did want one with like the C6 axle code, which is a 355 and a limited slip differential. And then this one happened to come up and that's what it had. Found this on Craigslist, guy out of Cleveland. He had made quite a name for himself like liquidating these cop cars. He really didn't do it much anymore, but like I guess they contacted him. There were a package of 3 of these and this is the first one that was available. It needed the least amount of work to it, but it had the axle code I wanted. It has surface rust, so it's weird. You know, we're in Pennsylvania, and like, you know, you get rusty cars that rust through, bolts you can't break loose. This does have surface rust in a lot of areas because it was in salt air right near the ocean. But then you like put a wrench on that thing, and you're like, oh, it's gonna break, and it just breaks right loose, and the threads are perfect because it was never like sprayed with salt water at high pressure. It was just exposed to salt air. It kind of looks like garbage under the hood and certain brackets and stuff like that, but honestly there's no risk of any panels rusting through. It's in good shape. It'll last probably 10 winters here.
How long have you had it?
I bought this in, I think it was maybe early November of 2021. Had 105,000 miles on it.
It's pretty low.
And for a cop car, that's actually really low.
Yeah.
3,200 and something idle hours. They have an idle hours meter in there. In fact, I purchased another car for our Lemons team for $800, and it's an 08, and it has about the same amount of mileage, but it has 13,000 idle hours, which works out to like 1.7 something years of idling. Clearly, cops just sitting in it, farting into the seats and running the air conditioning for 13,000 hours.